Welcome to the Healing Collective podcast, where we explore the paradox of healing.
And we broadcast all of the healing codes to support a world of more heart-centered humans. Can't believe how good I feel.
Yay.
I cannot. And I believe it. And there's a part of me that's like, fucking worked hard for this for 20 years.
Yeah.
I really feel that my nervous system, I am floating in an energetic ball of trust. And it's just like, I'm just, wherever I go, the trust ball is going with me. And I'm like, yes. Remember when we did the life walk?
Yeah.
My 40th birthday, the 40 memory, I was in my field it was like the ball that I'm experiencing now, but it was giant. And it literally felt like I was being just held in a hammock of trust. That was the thing. And I'm like, I'm starting to feel it. It doesn't feel temporary.
Did we do the life walk on the podcast?
No, we did it in the circle.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm feeling pretty good too.
You're so different energetically.
Yeah, I got some trippy stuff to tell you. So for the listeners, I got to be with my playmate here last week. I was in Chicago for a week doing a advanced somatic experiencing training. So we're learning like advanced techniques around nervous system stuff, which I do. And we're lending our nervous systems to each other to practice. So I did, like 6 kind of intense sessions over 6 days in a container that it's like 85 of the most trauma-informed people in the country, basically the top 0.5%. And we were setting the conditions of the container specifically to kind of go deep. And so no surprise, had some pretty intense sessions, ended up I thought I was working on workaholism. That was the issue I brought because I've been working so much lately and not really feeling a lot of agency about titrating that down. And what I came to realize was I ended up working on some of my near-death experiences.
Some of them, because you have multiple. Let's just go ahead and can you list them for the audience?
Prepare your nervous systems.
And don't forget, and just add on the couple surgeries after that, just for a little.
Well, I'll speak to
her partner in this training. She literally had to do an intake and tell them, here's all the things that I've been through. Here's not even all my traumas, just the times that I almost died.
Well, honestly, that was the first part of something changing for me, which was, so we're in small groups of 3. And so, when you're doing an intake with a client and hearing about their history, like one, as a practitioner, you need to understand someone's trauma history in order to work with them in the best equipped way possible. And for people, just talking about their trauma can be really activating. So it was focusing on like how to titrate, even taking a history, and make sure that that's a friendly experience for a nervous system rather than being like this, or whatever. And I am used to being like this, and probably not even really feeling how I feel about any of it, like kind of glazing over some of the stuff that's happened in my life, I guess. And so, we're in this very special container together and we're doing this specific thing and we all know what we're doing. And so I'm, like a little less in my coach energy of like challenging and active. And it's much more like really focused on like staying back in my seat and staying right in front of my spine and really noticing my own nervous system. It's a much slower, quieter kind of event than say like a conscious leadership retreat or something like that. And so I was slowing myself down a bit, but I was saying some of my stuff. And they specifically were like, what do you really want to work on this week? What is like unresolved thing for you. And I was talking about the workaholism, but we had learned that day how tied near-death experiences are to what we call global high intensity activation, which I have had experiences like that. And so, the two things that I started to talk about, the two things I brought up were, when I was 2.5, I drowned, and my mom brought me back, helped resuscitate me and help me recover from like a near drowning.
Thank God. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. Thank you, Joan. I didn't have an active recall memory of that, but my mom told me about it, and I have had somatic memories of it since. And when something like that happens, I was underwater, very cold water in a river in New Hampshire, and a tide. So I couldn't sit up. I was stuck underwater. My eyes were open and I was looking at the sky and seeing water running past, but I couldn't, because of the current, I couldn't sit up. And a lot of times when those types of experiences happen, you prepare for death. You go into a freeze state, just like an animal would, so that you don't feel your body, because it might not feel good to die. And you kind of leave your body a little bit. And a lot of people never really get all the way back in their body when a near-death experience happens. And so I had that going on always. And I've always gotten a lot of feedback about sort of some intensity in me and a preference sort of for some freeze kind of responses to fear. And I've known this about myself. And when I was 32, I had cancer. I don't know if people must know that on this, who listen to this, and I had a major abdominal surgery, and they used a little general anesthesia, but my main pain control method was an epidural. And so like a continuous infusion of pain medicine into into my abdominal area. And something went weird in the surgery. They did the surgery, and then between moving me from the like surgical room to a bed to go into the recovery room, somebody like forgot to attach the epidural. So I was getting no pain control as they were bringing me out of anesthesia and letting the anesthesia wear off. So how that looked was a lot of pain coming up really big, kind of waking me up because of how much pain I felt. And I was still kind of paralyzed from the general, and I was intubated, so I couldn't speak. So I really couldn't get anyone's attention. All I had was my eyes, and my eyes were wide, and I was like searching around trying to get someone's attention with my eyes. And so that would be like a fragmented, conscious experience where it kind of feels like death and you can't move. So it kind of mimics death. And so I was just putting this together like, oh, I have some associations in my nervous system around really actually slowing down. And that actually feels like death to me. And those experiences haven't been good. So I really like
that manifests as working 12-hour days,
12-hour days, and not saying no to new stuff,
being like, and I'm killing it, and I'm fine, and
having a positive orientation around having an overactive sympathetic nervous system, like always going and being like, that's good, that's definitely better, and actually feeling strong and feeling alive in sort of like a low-key stress response all the time. So I was pulling all that together. So I was telling my little buddies in my circle, my two folks I worked with, Nora and Jim. I love them forever. But I was just kind of saying, yeah, well, I drowned when I was 2.5, and then I had cancer. I woke up in the surgery. I was paralyzed. I couldn't speak. I was just like saying this stuff, and they're like, it's landing on them. And this man basically was very impacted by what I was saying and got emotional just hearing about it. And I was like, that was actually the first part of me being like, oh, like something really happened to me.
And the cliff notes is bodies are back, bitches.
Bodies are back, bitches.
And the cliff notes is what we are experiencing. And I think what has happened in our time away from you all and this break is we're healing our fucking nervous systems. And
Mm-hmm.
like the experience I'm having is like literally the thoughts I'm having is like, you're great. Go, girl. You can do it. It's like the greatest parent, the greatest, like those are my naturally occurring thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
not in my overactive nervous system where it's like, this is your fault. You did it wrong. You did it, like the natural state is trust. And so what Bethany and I talked a lot about was like, enlightenment for so long has been this idea of leaving the body. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, Byron Katie's workshop is called the No Body Workshop. And I can see how that was in service of evolution too, especially in a traumatized culture where your nervous system is completely under attack. Getting through that enough to like be able to expand and observe and see yourself has been a huge gift to humanity. But what's this the downside of that is like this detachment, right? Or this separation from what it is to really be human or the experience of humanness. And now it's like, oh, I think the evolution is healing our nervous systems, opening our hearts, and bringing our divinity, our light body, whatever is your experience of your soul identity, fully into a human body and experiencing that as an integrated experience on the earth. And I wonder if that's also the evolution that the earth is going through.
Yeah. Yeah. And how the more in touch we are with our own bodies and the impact of things on our bodies and noticing it and being able to have strategies around that and healing that, like maybe we'll be nicer to the planet. Maybe
Right.
when
Well,
we
you
really
want totally different things. Like you move through differently. Like,
like I used to love roller coasters. And I'm like, yeah, let's fucking go. And it was so intense. It was like a match for all the intensity in my system. And I was like, that feels good. And now the kids want to go on roller coasters and they're like low key kid roller coasters. And I'm like, I don't want to feel like I'm going to die. This doesn't feel good. I don't want to do that. So it's really, really different. You want different things. You make different choices.
Or if you can feel in your own nervous system, like what it feels like to have your feelings hurt or be disappointed or have someone treat you in a way that's not caring, you're less likely to do that to someone else because you feel it in your own nervous system, right? Or like when you understand the impact on your nervous system of working 60, 70 hours a week, you're less likely to like force your child to be like, okay, you're going to go to school and do homework and do this course. And like, we're never going to rest,
Yeah.
And we're just going to go.
And then we're going to get you to just quickly fall asleep at night. Just be quiet now. The day's done and you need to go to bed now fast.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the video that I posted, but it was like this, I don't even know who he is, but he's talking. He's like, if I wanted to create like the worst world for humanity, I would create like food deserts and I would create a media that is saturated in fear. If I wanted to basically keep bodies hostage and keep nervous systems in hostage, I would create everything that we've created.
Mm. Well, what I like is agency. I like the idea of like not having automatic pre-programmed kind of responses to things that are learned and having more agency. So for instance, with working, I've done all my work. I've interviewed the personas. Like I've done my context work. I know I shouldn't. My bank account's okay. Like I don't need to work as much as I'm working, but I didn't feel like I actually had real agency around it. And so
it was just like an autopilot.
Autopilot. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's it's an overcoupled response to activity. But I like the idea of agency and what if everyone has more of that? And
one thing I'm curious about is because I keep asking myself, like, is there one thing that I did to create this? Is this just automatically happening in 2022? Like, is it my age? Like, is it everything together? Did I have any control over the shift that I'm experiencing? I mean, I will say, like, I went into kind of a 2-year study of MDMA with the intention of decolonizing my body. So it's not like it hasn't been an intention, but I do wonder if like COVID and that virus was like preparing bodies for a more evolved, like a more, I don't even want to say more, but like a nervous system resetting. Like if it has something to do with this. Like I kept saying, like, this feels like an upgrade. It feels like an upgrade. Like, did it in some way that we cannot see teach ourselves?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But I know we had an interesting conversation around, and this is not about like bypass. I don't think Lauren or I subscribe to that being beneficial at all, but
like not bypassing how difficult it was, the lives that were lost.
Yeah.
Right. There was a seriousness.
And when we have challenges, if the conditions are right, if there's certain conditions, we can really learn so much and have so much more capacity. So like after was the second day? Yeah. After day 2, I had a very big somatic session at this thing. Lauren took me to like this Korean spa to like chill out, which was great. And we were talking in one of the like hot pools or cold pools or whatever about how all the skills that we have now, that I never would have these skills if I didn't experience these really difficult things and then be like looking for ways to like move through them. And I'm like so grateful. I'm so grateful that I am a context coach. I'm so grateful that I'm a somatic experience practitioner. I love doing this. It feels so aligned and so powerful. And it feels like it's stuff that I was uniquely created to do. And I was seeking out all of these tools because I was suffering and shit was going wrong. And I had all these experiences. Like I wouldn't know this much about the nervous system if I didn't have a bunch of hits I took over my life. And I wasn't curious about that. So it's not like everything happens for a reason. Love your suffering. That's not what
but I do think we're pointing it's to. Like, it's the same thing that we talk about the paradox of healing. Like in this dimension of reality and where we are, paradox is a huge piece, and accepting the both and it's a huge part of our evolution, right? To accept that we all need to heal and no one needs to heal, to accept that COVID was terrible for so many people and it could also be a great gift,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about how, obviously there's so much different research out there. I'm sure 100 people could show me the opposite of what I'm about to say, but in a lot of the circles that I'm connected to, the research suggests that most of the people who died from COVID had some kind of pre-existing condition that then led to their death. It wasn't the virus itself, which goes back to your idea of conditions. Like if the wellness of our world and our bodies was in a higher state of wellness, would this have taken us out in the way that it did? Mm-hmm. And you know what I'm saying? Like, and just like the implications of that, the implications of how we see the virus versus how we take responsibility for like our general wellness as a collective society of humans.
Yeah. Like what conditions are we co-creating all the time, either just within ourselves or with the people that we're interacting with or with the planet?
Media, with consumption, with, yeah, I mean, that's something I'm really, really waking up to is all of these ways that the food that I've put into my body, my ways of being around moving, and just like the more that I put my focus on healing my nervous system and my body and then holding this state of trust. And I'm really honest about all the things that my body needs to be healthy, getting really honest and like a big journey around my addiction to sugar and the way that my mind, like right now I'm basically eating vegetables and protein, but I'm also like have these shakes in between that really basically balance your blood sugar, like help you to keep your blood sugar balanced. And it's night and day different, like what I grab, what I reach for, how that's connected to adrenalizing, how that's connected to workaholism, how that's connected to capitalism. and consumerism and like the whole chain of co-creation, both in the present and over time, that we've created to like get to a place where like most of the time, most people I work with cannot even feel what's happening in their body.
Mm-hmm. Well, what you're bringing up reminds me of, I had an experience in the fall where I was just really, I was excited about some good things going on in my life, I guess. And I largely was going to like reconnect with somebody that, yeah, there's a lot of connection. There's a lot of other ways I could say it, but basically I'm in love. I'm in love with somebody and I was looking forward to connecting with somebody. And, I was doing other things too. I was getting fascia stretching, this, that. No, I don't know. But I was getting I was like supporting myself in all these other ways. I was doing SE, but I like stopped when I got in touch with that vibration of love at that level. I stopped craving sugar. I completely stopped drinking alcohol, caffeine, and stopped eating sugar. It wasn't a choice. I wasn't like, oh, let me do this.
Exactly what's happening. Like I do not.
It just
alcohol,
stopped.
Caffeine,
like 10, 12 pounds just fell off of me. Like I wasn't trying. I was grabbing like what I wanted every day was green juice and salads, which salads are tricky business for those of us who don't have a lot of intestines. But I was like doing natural, great.
Yeah.
I was doing great with it. And I was like, holy shit. And I just felt really held. And I had one friend of mine be like, well, yeah, you're in love. Like, yeah, you're going to feel good. It's temporary. Well, like, yeah, chemicals.
What if that's the natural state?
What's that how we're all supposed to feel all
nervous
the time?
System? What if that is like, and it's like chicken before the egg. Like, are we evolving to that state? Were we in that state at one time? Did bodies have that experience? Are there cultures right now that bodies are having that experience? The bottom line is 99% of the time in this United States of American culture, that is not the experience that bodies are having.
Yeah.
And who would we be and how would we treat everything from that place? And there's this other thought that I have is like 2022 is like this portal for like miraculous healing. And that we came in, specifically you and I came in 1982, and like, it was always like, okay, it was almost like we spread it out. Like, okay, we want to get to 2022, like in the middle of our life.
Yeah.
That like all the healing work and everything that we're doing was like to get ready for now. And I don't have a lot of data points, but this is what I'm experimenting with. If like across the board, like generations of trauma get lifted for people in 2022.
Sorry, I'm saying keep going because I think the boys just got here from jiu-jitsu. Hold on. Yes, Baba. Hi, sweet. You got a stripe. Oh my god. Oh my gosh, you both got it. Oh my goodness, I'm so proud of you guys. You've been working so hard. Sorry, you're on the podcast suddenly.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll be done in like a half an hour. I'm so proud of you, Finn. Yeah, these kids have been working so hard. They've been going to jiu-jitsu 4 days a week. Both of you.
No.
Hardcore.
Come here, you.
Say it out loud. I'm proud of you, Parker.
Parker, I'm so proud of you. Did you get your stripe? Can I see your belt? Where is it?
Hi, I was on a 4 episode.
Yeah, come on over. You want to say hello? You've got fans probably by now. We didn't quite release it.
Even though we haven't released any episodes.
But by the time they hear this, we will have. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Well, we don't know what order, I guess, right? That we're gonna.
Yeah, we don't.
Back on a future episode.
Oh, yeah.
Be back on a future or past episode because time is not linear.
Yeah, these kids are making cameos. And then what the conversation Lauryn and I were having, because I did a thing with like, oh yeah, I was just feeling in love with someone. And I kind of poo-pooed it of like, oh, well, that's just temporary. And that's just when we go temporarily insane and it doesn't last.
Which is the message that we give people.
Right. That's the message we give
One
people.
of many messages like that.
And I was talking to Lauryn about it. And it's like, we do have this thing where we kind of quote unquote, fall in love or fall in love with how we make ourselves feel in the presence of somebody else that we're perceiving. And, and then we start to get to really know people. And then things do feel like they change, so, often, and it gets harder. And it does feel like this fleeting thing that's harder to maintain, but it's actually just a big invitation to work out and notice and work through whatever's in the way of you feeling in that state all the time. And like when we're relational, there is conflict and things come up. And so it's like a perfect container, actually.
Have I ever had you read that chapter in Marianne Williamson where she talks about this?
No.
It's like every time that I lead a wedding, I read portions of this part. I was thinking the other day, I haven't seen that book around, but I have it on my phone. Oh, there it is. I'm looking at it. Marianne Williamson talks about this, and I'm sure other people do. Like, I literally want to
read it. Paul Dagg loves Marianne Williamson so much.
And she literally says, like, when you meet someone and that feeling of love is like actually your state of being and the state that like both of those two of you are the possibility, the potentiality of what you can create together. And then you start to fall asleep to that and face all of the things that are in the way of creating that. And that's the whole journey of commitment. And when you're both committed to growth and you're both committed to love, that, you'll be guided on the journey to healing, to experience that highest potential. And as we know how difficult that is. And, there's so many things even that I'm learning about when the saying committed versus the energy of commitment and like what it really means to be committed to that type of a journey. But she pretty much says it's like the highest spiritual experience. Like it's one of the most, I would say maybe like the Navy SEAL of consciousness type of journey to choose.
You're appealing to my global high intensity activation right now.
Right. Well,
Navy SEALs of consciousness.
I think you were already on that, really. I don't think this is like new information. It's on my phone. Can I go grab my
go get
phone?
it. I want to hear it.
Falling in love has been getting a bad rap recently. Supposedly more sophisticated types suggest that falling in love is an illusion, a state of non-reality, because it is based on failure to see the love object as a real human being. According to this view, real love sets in only at the end of infatuation. A beautiful smile or dreams of greatness, for instance, are not considered as real as one's tendency to squeeze the toothpaste from the top of the tube. From an illuminated perspective, falling in love is not neurotic, but rather one of the few genuinely non-neurotic things we do on this earth. Falling in love is an effort to retrieve paradise, that dimension of bliss where no one is blamed for anything and everyone is fully appreciated for who they are. When we fall in love, we drop, for however brief a time, our tendency to judge. We suspend our disbelief and eschew our faithlessness in another human being. What usually happens after that is not that we finally wake up to reality. What tends to happen after that is that we fall asleep to reality. We cannot wake up to our brother's imperfections because the perception of our imperfection is itself a non-awakened state. Our spiritual perfection is not altered by our imperfect personalities. Seeing perfection is seeing the light. Falling in love is not an illusion as much as falling out of love is a fall from grace. What we see when we fall in love is not illusion, but truth. We want to fall in love because we want so much to return to God. And of course, we want to escape this darkened world. We want desperately to go home to a place where all of us can see how beautiful we are. Mm. It goes on. I'll send you all the chapters, but
yeah, honestly,
it's good.
Yeah. Why does it feel so terrifying to like choose that? Because the other person might not pick it, or they might change their mind. Like, what do you think is the root of the fear of why we're not just all like, yeah, let's go for that. It's just all collectively.
Because we're so connected to our 5-dimensional reality, and we're so connected to when we look around, like we want to control what happens, and we can only control based on what we've seen. So if we've never seen a relationship where that love has remained consistent, or that romance has remained consistent. We have no reason to believe that's possible.
Right.
We have so much more reason to believe even either the experiences we've had in the past that we put on the present, or what we see around us. And ironically, this goes back to the nervous system, right? Because a fear-based nervous system is constantly trying to protect itself from what's happened in the past, but then ends up recreating it in the future if it's unconscious, right? So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, like one heartbreak, one heartbreak creates heartbreak over and over and makes us unavailable for the experience of love as the vibration it is.
Yeah. Well, the person in question, that's actually what went down where like I'll say I was in love with him when I was very young and it didn't happen. And I like was just like not doing that again. And I actually would like not even consider people. Like if I thought there was a tiny chance that it wouldn't work or I would be rejected or something like that, I wouldn't even move towards that. So I would go for these sort of like other options that felt safe and felt not risky. And usually that I, held a lot of the cards in the relationship and a lot of the polarity and had a lot of control or whatever, which like isn't actually what I most want in relationship, but it felt safer than the risk.
Yes. You just answered
rejection.
Your own question, or the risk of heartbreak. I mean, what we know is like, just because of the reality we live in, like it's not ever going to be an experience of like bliss all the time anyway. And heartbreak is inevitable the more vulnerable you make yourself. And that's, I think I've talked about this on here with you, but like there's some point where the message I got was like, what if you just never protected yourself from heartbreak? What if you just stepped into it and leaned into it over and over again? And I did that. That's what I did for a very long time. And what I learned is like my heart just got bigger. Like what I could hold just got bigger. And the fears of dying, of like truly my nervous system believing that heartbreak is entangled in my system as death, like it got to relearn like, oh, we don't die when that happens.
Yeah. I think I say stuff like that to people and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I'm like, I don't think heartbreak's bad. I think when your heart breaks, your heart gets bigger when you let that happen. I think you get more connected. Yeah. Diana says stuff like that. What?
Or like that heartbreak is the price we pay for love, or grief is the price we pay for love.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
it's like
Deb sent that book to us that, what is it called? Grief. Maybe it's Grief and Love or something like that. But this is an Indigenous person wrote it talking about how grief is celebrated, like, and really honored because it just means that's how connected you are. That's how deeply you loved is evidenced by how deeply you grieve. Like when you lose somebody, like to this dimension, at least this life anyway. So, and I've had some more experiences around that and it feels more true. And I think I've just done enough with feeling feelings and somatic work that it doesn't feel as scary anymore. But I don't get the sense that everyone else is feeling that way. And so, and I did, like, what happened was I got rejected. I was, several years into kind of doing my work and I met my other friend and I fell in love and we were both really committed to waking up and healing and learning and consciousness and all this stuff. We were into all this stuff. We were in practice. It's like all we talked about. It was so fun that I found somebody that wants to sit on the couch for 8 hours and talk about this. And that's like a really fun Saturday. And we're like, great. And then he broke up with me and oh, fuck. It's like I had to feel all the heartbreak of like a lifetime and all the rejection of like a lifetime. Because I had avoided even creating a situation where I would feel that. And then it got created probably because I was ready for it. And it took a minute to work through that. And, we love each other so hard and big now. We've been through all kinds of changes in our friendship and relationship, but I just noticed so much availability in me to commit to love. Not even really specific ideas about what that is or how it looks or whatever, but like just to commit to that in relationship. And I'm looking forward to.
Remember when Jim made us cry on the podcast because he talked about turning Debbie around and looking in her eyes and like seeing the eyes of God.
Yeah.
And like that is, and I have had that experience now one time, 1.5 times. And it was, I even when it was happening, I'm like, this is to show me that this is the state of who we are created to be and how we're created to be. But the level of surrender and trust that existed in those moments. And it's like that, it like allowed life force to move through my entire body. So instead of like, for me, orgasm feels like this little like rocket of life force, like boom, like that. This felt like an entire wave all over me that just stayed in the space. And it was like love making became sharing energy, sharing that love and energy just back and forth, because we were both, you know, and it was like a miracle. It was literally a miracle, you know. And I think the heartbreak, right, is to accept that right now, in this moment, in the reality that we live in, that is a miracle. And a lot of people will say, what I've heard is a miracle is just when something happens outside of the normal, like time and space dimension that it normally occurs. So like if I brought a cell phone to 1885, they would experience cell phones as a miracle. Yeah. We don't experience them as a miracle, right? And so there's a part of me that's like, that's the most beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. Like that, and that world exists somewhere in time. And likely my consciousness has even been there already to have those moments now. And there's like grief and acceptance, like of the reality that we're in and the context. And even that person, when I had that experience, right. And that something allowed them to access that with me for that time. And then that part of them, they did not have access after that. And are we willing to do what life is teaching us or guiding us to do to get back to that Garden of Eden kind of experience? And, you know, there's this movie Bliss on Amazon, and it suggests like they live in a bliss state and they want to travel back to like this time to experience suffering because of the contrast, because it makes them care or value the bliss state, right? It gets complex. Like, it's not to say this like utopia Garden of Eden. Like, I think life understands that all of it is the experience, but I think we've had an imbalance of the trauma, you know, or the grieving or the pain. And it's like, what if it was a little bit more balanced? What if we were having those love bombing experiences as much as we were having the fear bombing ones?
Well, it reminds me of all my somatic experience nervous system training, because people start learning like, oh, fear response. Oh, fight and flight and freeze. Oh, this. Oh, I dissociate. Oh, I do this. And they sort of start labeling all their fear responses as these things, like they're these problems. And it's like, those help us. Those are essential.
Natural,
those are
right.
And even like the idea of like,
they make it pathological.
They pathologize it. And they're like, okay, well, my nervous system,
which
like
is a response of a fear-based
up.
nervous system. Fear-based nervous systems make things pathologies.
And even in the class, people are like we're trying to, you know, we're standing for helping people process and release old charges, trauma, charges in the nervous system related to things that have happened, and helping them move through that by feeling things through and being more in our bodies under the right conditions. And people are even like, I don't want to get people too activated. And our teacher this week's like, activation's healthy. Like, you need to activate your sympathetic nervous system to run up a flight of stairs, especially if you're trying to have a conversation with somebody. It's not a problem to have activation. It's just, it's different states of a healthy nervous system.
Other part of like, let me control for the discomfort. Let me control for
absolutely.
And that is another paradox, right? Is like, I mean, I'll just speak about my journey. Like the nervous system I'm experiencing now took a lot of disrupting my nervous system to experience. Like being willing to go into the triggers, explore the triggers, feel the things that I never wanted to feel in order to reteach my nervous system something new.
I have all my notes from last week, and there was a place where he was like talking about this. I want to actually, it's like a slide even. But like, what is a healthy nervous system? That's what it was. Like, what's an untraumatized nervous system
we
look
have
like?
to be like that word healthy can even get another binary, right?
Yeah. Or maybe it was like, what is a well-regulated nervous system? Something like that. I'm just looking for it, but it was like not what you would think. And oh shit, I want to find it.
I'm so curious, like even who they use to like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you even decide like and even I wonder like in our current culture, like is the like most regulated nervous system that they've studied actually the most regulated that's possible? Or like, are we evolving to something where we can regulate at even a level that we can't even imagine?
Yes. And I just think about regulation, and like our physical experiences are part of like what makes us human. And so one of the things that they're pointing to is that you'll get more capacity. So basically more has to happen. Like a bigger and bigger event is going to need to happen to really get you dysregulated. So your capacity grows over time. And you're able to, in a healthy way, respond to what's happening and then regulate yourself back down. Like you've got the resources to do that. So yeah, it's appropriate. Like we're not trying to say.
That's actually so affirming.
Yes.
Because remember what we were talking about? It's not saying,
no, now you're never going to get upset about something. You're never going to get worked up. It's like, no, you will. That makes sense. That's exactly what's going to happen. But it's the ability to be with that and get yourself back to being more present and resolving.
This is bringing up, I think this kind of ties back to like even your thing about how you're in love and this journey of being in love, because I mean, everybody listens to this knows so much about my business with Heyman. And right now we have significant separation and boundaries, but I mean, I still hold him in so much love. But like when I met him, I had not had sex, not dated for 6 years at least. I know it was 6 years. It might've been 7. I think there had been significant healing in my nervous system at that point. I had all this stuff in line. And I remember thinking like, you know, there's a lot of different things that came up at the beginning of even meeting him. It wasn't even my intention to like date him or be in relationship with him for a while after we met. But I just remember when I realized, I've already been through this. But like something's different this time because I'm awake and I'm watching it and I think I'm supposed to go through it all again. And like, while I can't give that relationship the full, like that relationship shredded me, and I can give it 75% credit for the fact that I am experiencing what I'm having now because I was going back through the disruption. Oh, and it was like recreating literally every trauma that I've ever experienced. And there's a way that I was awake to it and now had all these tools to integrate it. And I even saw that happening as it was happening, but sometimes it would just get so exhausting that I'm like, you know, because at some point you're like, is this going to end? Like, is this, you know? And so from this point right now, I can see like, and it was a 7-year cycle. We know what, you know, that those are like divine cycles of healing. And so I believe that like, that is actually like an opportunity that we call in through, and because also proportionally, that proportional love that was available and commitment that was available that I felt towards him made it so like proportional to the healing that I got from it. If that makes sense.
Like, you're like, this is going to be big. in all the
Right.
ways.
Right. And like something organic, whereas like, you were talking about like kind of how you met this person, you're in love, it didn't work out. And then you're like, I'm going to control this, but I'm committed to this marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a different type of commitment than it's like something in me just keeps me showing up to this really difficult situation. And I keep feeling love for this person, even though it doesn't make sense and they're not treating me well. And our culture would say there's a way that we pathologize that to say that the person who's loving and who keeps showing up for that, like, you know what I mean? Like there's a victim villain energy that goes into it.
Codependent stuff.
Right. All these things, which like, yes, all those things exist within what's happening, similar to what you're saying with the nervous system, right? That gets whatever. It's like, yeah, it's going to dissociate. It's going to do these things because that's actually the process.
Yeah. It's the process.
And, and then at one point, my journey was to be like, I can't take anymore. I need to separate. Sometimes in the journey, his process was, I can't take anymore. I need to separate. Like that's also been a part of the process. I don't think it's like a guaranteed like outcome. Maybe, that's what I'm really having to surrender is like, maybe it wasn't the outcome that I hoped in terms of our relational container, but in terms of the healing that I got. And I would, I don't know if he would say the same, but it feels the same on both sides.
Well, and, we're talking about like, you're pointing at like remembering something from the future and like interdimensionality and part of our knowing coming online about other people in our life around this type of connection and this draw to people and this wanting to love someone and commit to somebody on whatever level, whether it's like this energetic level or a life level or a spiritual level or whatever it is. And it's another one of those paradoxes because I feel like I know with every cell in my body, the people who I am connected to in this life. I don't question it. Like I know who these people are. Some of them are my girlfriends, my kids, some of my friends, one or two of these like guys, like these two guys really. And also holding like the paradox of might never be available for anything in this life. And can I be okay with that? Right. Because, I went through that with this one guy that I did date and break up with or get broken up with. And we've gone through all different iterations of like seeing what it looks like to just let go of it too, and not be attached to trying to get something. So that's my edge is like to know what I know and feel connected to and love who I love and not be attached to them needing to do anything about that. And me not having to do anything about that.
Place. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I am. Like, I do still believe that that's the highest potential of what's possible. And there's moments where that potential was embodied. And it takes, I am learning a lot individually first. And I don't even want to say first because that makes it linear, but it takes a lot energetically for me to hold that space. It would take a lot for the other person based on their own healing journey. And then for the two of us to hold that together, like that is a very high level of evolution. And I can't, want that for somebody else or, I can't adjust their path and it goes back to this like metaphor. Like I believe that maybe it's not even a metaphor at this point. Like I believe that consciousness is evolving so quickly that we are remembering the lives that we've had in this life, that likely you and I will die and remember each other in the next life. If we were to run into each other on the street, and maybe the memory is fuzzy, we can't know, but even if you were like homeless on the street, it might look crazy. I might have a family and be like, that homeless girl needs to come live with us. That homeless girl, I'm going to go see her every day. And I might feel so pulled to you, but my memory of why is like cut off. And your contract might be to be a homeless person because that's what you want to learn. Like you want to learn life from that perspective. And maybe you even don't want to, like, maybe your contract isn't like, I want to evolve a whole bunch. Maybe it's like, I want to see what it's like to not give a fuck about evolution or ascend, you know? And at some point I would have to find the place where maybe I can still have some connection to you and recognize you. I might have to grieve that you never remember me. Maybe I remember you and you don't remember me. You know what I mean? You might even see me as like, oh my God, I'm scared of you. Get away from me. You might even see me as a threat, which I've experienced. Right. And then we have to find that Princess Hill quote, like boundaries is the place where I can love you and me at the same time. Like we would have to find that place. And yeah, like I can feel the part of me that's like, can accept it for now. I'm not sure if I'm fully willing to accept that for a whole lifetime, but I think it's a level of complexity around our evolution, around waking up, around really getting out of the time-space dimension.
Well, I think how awake we are, how conscious we are, how healed we are is tied. So I did all these sessions on workaholism. And so like how it's been going is I'll have these 12-hour days, 13-hour days, 14-hour days. I'll go downstairs, eat something, sit on the couch, eat my food and be like, I want to open my laptop back up and get back on my emails and clear some things out, like a compulsion. Like I could do like an hour. Now, if my friends are around or the kids are here or whatever, like it's fine. But if nothing else was going on, I was like, let's go. And like not healthy. And like I was totally tracking it. I'm like, oh, wow. And I would not do it just to not do it, to prove myself I can not do it. But like, you know, I wasn't really working on the weekends, but I would notice that pull. It was like, holy shit. And I just went and did all these sessions on this and on these experiences of that felt like death to be really, really, really slow and still and quiet. Had very powerful somatic sessions about it. And halfway through the training, I brought my laptop every day because we had a 2-hour lunch and I have 2 full-time jobs. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take care of some stuff at lunch. And the third day I was like, I don't really feel the need to open my laptop. All that's going to be fine. Another day, something falls through the cracks. That's going to be fine too. Like I couldn't believe how different it felt. And even coming back, I've only been here 2 days and I had some pretty full days booked up because I booked them before I even went on this. And I took all the time off to do the training and stuff. So it was busy. And I'm like, first of all, here's the things I noticed in our last 5 minutes. I have a lot more no's, a lot more access to no. Like I did a bunch of chemistry calls this week. So there's a group that all wants coaching and I'm like, I don't need to do this. And my sleep is different and just the way I'm feeling is different a little bit. I feel like I'm still integrating, but I've also been doing SE sessions with people and it's wild because I already have a lot of focus on like attunement. So like really being connected to my client while I'm working with them. But I'm like, it's like, you're going to love this, Lauren, because it's like on this magic thing, but it's like, I feel like, it's like my whole body's kind of vibrating almost when I'm with someone, when they're in their experience, I feel it all through my face. It's like tingling. It feels like the borders of my body are not as well defined. And I'm like, I know what's happening over there. Like I know what's going on in their nervous system.
Release the borders. Like that's actually the experience. So when I'm like, can I come in your field?
Yeah.
I'm releasing the borders of myself because I'm knowing myself as energy beyond sensation. And that level of attunement is possible. But imagine if we all start to come online and we can attune to that level, like what boundaries and like there's just so many implications because there's a vulnerability that's very beyond anything that we can even imagine right now in our current reality. And the other paradox of what I'm hearing you say is like that workaholism was a gift because it was like revving you up over and over and over to wake you up to this awareness. And once you get the awareness and the rev up or the pattern breaks open, And in
It's
the
like,
energetic
oh.
field, it's just energy that's congested. So when you bring the light of awareness to energy that's congested, the energy just opens up, it spreads out, it integrates. And then the next, a consciousness in your body adjusts to the level of awareness that's available then.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all good, and sometimes it feels terrible. But I think this is why, like, fragility, we talk about that a lot in the race conversation, like something that around like people of color, for example, like the level of complex trauma and experiences that you might experience in our culture in a Black body, you could argue is exponential to many white bodies over time and as a collective, right? And so their tolerance for discomfort becomes higher, but then their access to evolution becomes higher because they're more willing to step into discomfort. And that's something that I see show up a lot in whiteness specifically. It's like a very low tolerance for discomfort because of how much we have created a privilege around safety, security, and control, but only in that, like, we can drink a lot or we can buy a lot of things or we can, not in a way that it's actually the thing that our bodies most need to heal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was working with someone just before this podcast recording, and I was like, I can feel her nervous system, and I feel something else too. It's not because I've had experience where I just feel them, and like I can get like, and part of it is like the subconscious, like I'm noticing their pupil dilation and the color on their skin and their breathing and what's happening in their neck. Like I'm already paying attention to all of that. Both, I just kind of pay attention to that anyways, but I've been amplifying that practice because you can see nervous system changes if you're really looking. Right. So I've had a real practice around it, but it's not just that. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I can probably guess what's happening. And then sometimes I feel like I can actually feel what's happening.
No, right. And that's the thing. Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I get excited. It's like when people are like, how do you know that? Or that's a story. That's when it's like energetically, like, I do think there's a level of knowing at the level of energy that is not really explainable either, And so
that's what I say about you. Do you know that? I'm like, yeah, when my friend Lauren's around, things happen that I cannot explain because it's like, I can't explain it. And enough of these things have happened by this time that I'm like, this is real. Like it's real at the level of energy or whatever, because I don't have some sort of cerebral or scientific explanation for some of these things, but they're my direct experience.
Or like if I am feeling in someone's field, often, a pathology or a gaslighting, it's like, is that my story? Is that my projection? Or is at the level of energy? So I have a story about the energy that I'm feeling, or I name it with a name, but at the level of energy, is it true that I'm feeling like congested, dark energy that they're not aware of? And like, is that even arguable? I could almost say some of the experience that I have, it's like, it doesn't feel arguable at the level of energy in the same way. That it feels arguable when your heart and mind are turned off and you can't attune. Because then if you can't attune, it is all up to your brain to just like basically track everything you've ever known and then apply that to what's happening right now and then make a decision based on that, what you think is happening versus like a knowing in the moment.
When you're in the field, when you're in someone's field, are you like, the experience I just had right before this call was like, it's almost like I said, the edges of my body felt softer. I didn't really feel the firm edges of my body, and it was kind of vibrating a little bit. Like it felt like really nice feeling and really subtle, but like it's almost like after orgasm when you're in that full vibration of just like aliveness almost, and almost like discharge on a nervous system sense, like a really positive sensation of that. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I know what you're describing. Are you talking about when I'm in the field? Like, what's the question?
Yeah, like I was like, oh, not bordered the same way that I normally am.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it's like almost like my eyes were losing focus. Like I was kind of like trying to blink my way back into like what's happening right now a little bit.
Right. Yes. Remember how people always talk about my eyes, how they would like get big and stuff. Like I realized it's because like I was like entering the field, and what I'm what I'm learning now is like, I think from such a young age, I've been doing this, and that I was like how the way you're tracking like eyes and nose and mouth and everything, my system naturally is doing that all the time. Like I can see when people change between, but it's happening so fast. I'm just recognizing the only way I know it is because one time I did mushrooms and it got slowed down, and I saw like, oh, that's what I'm tracking in people all the time. Like my system is like trained to collect that data. So when you're describing how you feel in the body and all these things, like I am just now starting to, it's like I'm going backwards. I'm going the other direction. Whereas you're like, it feels like you're becoming aware of your sensations. Then you're becoming aware of like leaving out in your borders of your body. And then you're feeling how the sensations feel as you do that.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like, okay, when I come back into a body as a body.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I will say like when I met Heyman the first time and I would see him on my whole body would shake. So sometimes like when I really know that something is like a truth is coming through me, I get like a chill all the way up and down my body. But in general, like, I don't know if you noticed, but when I go in the field, I close my eyes because I try to turn off almost all of the 5 senses. And I'm feeling with a different sense that I can't explain. And I can't, the logic of it doesn't, just like, you know, you've seen, like when I went into that memory of that woman and I could see,
right.
You know, I saw her house and I could feel, but then it's just mainly just emotions. It's nothing, you know what I mean? It's like closed eye, an emotional experience that is coming over here. Or like today I was with a client and she was in the field, you know, she was closing her eyes, going into experience. And I'm like, where do you feel that in your body? In my body shows me where she feels it.
Yeah.
So I feel it over here. And then, you know, I felt it in these different spaces and she pointed those spaces. And I'm like, I've just learned over time that when I enter a field, we become one and their sensations become my sensations. I think the person who's more available to track it, you know, it's almost like maybe they're feeling some of mine, but it's really more like because I'm available, I'm tracking it and they're not. And that's what I think when I had that, like, I don't even want to call it a sexual experience, a tantric experience that I had. It was like being outside the borders of your body with another person outside the borders of their body, where we were both moving in between together. So instead of it being like one person's closed and one person's open, it's 2 people open, just moving like this. And then even within ourselves, I felt our kind of masculine, feminine energies like moving back and forth through the experience.
Well, I'm just thinking about astrology. So our astrology, like we're born a day and a half apart. So there's only 2 parts of our chart that are different. So our moon and our rising sign. And your rising sign is Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter. It's like
super mutable,
porous, no boundaries, in, out. And they're very spiritually minded, a lot of access to spirituality. Like the meme Pisces, you know, culture is like, what would I call Pisces? Like dreamers almost. And like,
and you see how we're marginalized. I just want to put that out there.
Scorpios are marginalized too. Hang on. I'm about to get to Scorpios. That is true. But, and then the other one is our moon sign. So your moon sign is Aries, which is emotions. And you just said you get rid of everything else and you feel the emotions. And so that's like the Lauryn-ness between the Bethany and the Lauryn that are here right now. And on my side, I'm a Scorpio rising, which is kind of, first of all, it's intense. and it's a water sign, but it's like the quietest, most like we're always noticing stuff. Like meme culture says Scorpios are going to like, find out every fact about your entire life before you even, go on your first date or whatever, things like that. Mm-hmm. And I feel that it's like this quieter noticing, like you say, sometimes you even notice uncomfortable because I'm tracking you. I'm not like consciously trying to track you or notice you, but you're like, I feel like watching me. And I get that from people. People are like, I feel seen. And some people are desperate to be seen, and that really works. And some people are like, feel like I'm seeing them too much, which is just very Scorpio. And then my moon sign is Taurus, which is earth. And it is very embodied. It's very steady and slower. So just like the few differences between your astrology and mine actually make up for these. It really explains these different ways that we experience interdimensionality or attunement or whatever it is, whatever the fuck we're talking about here. I don't know what to call it, but field work.
That's what, I think something I really appreciate about you is your genius around the body, and I think that every relationship is a call to oneness. Mm-hmm. So I can see how my call is to experience my body. Like one of the things it's like, cause you connect to this, like almost like carnal, like pre-verbal version of the feminine body. And like, mm-hmm. I can feel how like this journey I'm on right now is so about embodiment and so about like, I can imagine having more of those experiences on the journey that I'm on now. And it's interesting to me that way that you're describing your experience, almost like you're now exploring a little bit outside of the bounds of your body. Right. And so it's just another way that relationships are bringing us into oneness, right? In terms of, and that's why, that's for another podcast, but like why personality, and we have to be so careful with the ways that we describe who and what we are, because we are so also mutable and also malleable, mm-hmm. and always being called into greater and greater expansion, mm-hmm. And possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's another paradox because we all have these placements, these astrological areas where things are emphasized in our chart. Like maybe we have 3 planets in one zodiac sign, but we all have all the zodiacs. It's a fucking circle. We all have all of it.
We go through all the houses, right?
Yeah. And we all have that. Like we have some of those energies in, in different areas of our life. So you've got Scorpio too, and I've got Pisces too. So it's like, we just have it in these different places or different expressions or different focus things.
All right, folks. Healing Collective Podcast.
Bodies are back, bitches.
Bodies are back, bitches. That's all for now.
Thanks for listening. We welcome your feedback. You can email us at healingcollectivepod@gmail.com. Our website is thehealingcollectivepodcast.com, at Healing Podcast on Twitter, at Healing Collective Podcast on Instagram. Special thanks to Ethan Luck, who produces. You can find him at Ethan Luck on all platforms.